Thank you for taking the time to attend this morning's GMP Academy webinar focused on responsible marketing with first-party data, presented here from our home offices. We're going to take some time to walk through findings from research Boston Consulting Group recently delivered, as well as go deep on a client case study, and hopefully you'll get more insight into the value of first-party data, enablers to realize that value, and practical next steps. So as an introduction, my name is Dara Daunt. I am based here in the UK and I head up our platform specialist team. I'll hand over to Hedwig, who can introduce herself.
Hi there all, I'm Hedwig Groot. I'm based in the Netherlands, and within the scope of the Northern Europe, I'm an audience and measurement specialist. Let's kick it off.
Thanks, Hedwig. So moving on to the agenda, I won't read it aloud as you can see it here on screen, but just to say we'll be wrapping up with a Q&A session at the end where we're going to answer the questions that were pre-submitted via the form and the invitation. Any live questions on the YouTube chat, we'll address those directly on the chat. So please add your questions as we present. So, and moving on one more slide. There has been a pronounced increase in first-party data chatter in the industry at the moment. These are just three of the many, many articles written on the topic of late. Moving on. So this increase in focus is coming from a place where marketers need to show relevance and personalization because consumers expect it. This stat, 63% of consumers say they expect personalization as a standard of service, comes from a recent survey conducted in 2019. Relevance and personalization come from data being incorporated into marketing practices. But that could be third-party data too. Yes, it could. And third-party data certainly has specific strengths in terms of new customer acquisition, but obviously its availability and utility is under threat from rising user expectations around privacy. This is manifesting itself in new regulation and browser updates. Safari and Firefox already block third-party cookies by default, with Chrome to follow around 2022. With third-party data in digital marketing having a limited shelf life, albeit it may be replaced by alternatives, that puts a big focus on first-party data to drive relevance. It's not just third-party data challenges driving this trend. First-party data itself is becoming more ubiquitous and valuable due to the digitization of the economy. Customer relationships are often deeper in terms of knowledge online. Think of the retail experience where you can buy something in a physical store relatively anonymously, but online you usually need an account and you hand over personal information for a more personalized experience. What's interesting in our current climate with COVID looming over us is that digitization has accelerated massively in 3 months. There are customers that are starting to use digital platforms now who may have been completely analog before. Comscore reckons online activity is up 20% across major European markets, and businesses that can cater for that are benefiting. For instance, Ocado's sales were up 32% year over year as a result of COVID, indicative of them finding a new user base. The question for businesses is how to make these new relationships long-term through more customer-friendly marketing experiences. And lest we forget, first-party data, i.e. knowledge of your customer, has always been important. This is a nice quote from Jack Welch, the legendary former CEO of GE. There are only two sources of competitive advantage: the ability to learn more about our customers faster than the competition, and the ability to turn that learning into action faster than the competition. So a nice quote to sum that up in terms of the value of first-party data. Moving on to the research findings. In 2020, Google launched new research in partnership with Boston Consulting Group on the topic of responsible marketing with first-party data. This report, which was published in May, was designed to get a better understanding of current market perceptions around first-party data, how marketers were using it in practice and what good looks like, how responsible and effective first-party data use can drive digital marketing maturity, and what the key principles are for success in this space. In terms of methodology, it was qualitative research based on interviews with more than 70 marketers across a range of markets and verticals. If you want to access the full research yourself, you can find it on the BCG site or Think with Google site under the title Responsible Marketing with First-Party Data. We'll also post it in the chat. I'll start with the headline finding of the research. It says effective first-party data use in marketing delivers more relevant experiences for customers and can generate twice the incremental revenue from a single ad, customer comms, or outreach, and 1.5 times the improvement in efficiency versus companies that don't link their data sources. This is significant as it shows clearly the benefit of linking first-party data and activating upon it. Relevance in marketing, really this shows, does make a tangible performance difference. So the research found that 90% of respondents view it as very important to their digital marketing, but despite that, only about 30% are collecting and activating across channels, and virtually none are using data to deliver a fully cross-channel customer experience for their customers. A little later on, we'll look at some enablers that can help companies make more of their first-party data. In terms of consumer expectations, the research found that end users won't hand over personal information if they don't understand the value exchange. The use of first-party data requires a two-way relationship between the marketer and the consumer. If a marketer is being transparent and responsible with data, whilst providing value to the customer, like an app to extend their service, or content, or discount for sign-up, the consumer is in turn willing to share a little bit more about themselves. This in turn means that the marketer can use this data to provide more relevant comms and offers, further tailoring the consumer experience. It's an ongoing cycle based on trust. But a nasty surprise, such as a data breach or data being used in an unexpected or unwelcome way, can break the cycle of trust, which could easily lead to the consumer withdrawing consent for their data to be used. In terms of how the story varies across verticals, the research found that access to first-party data is important, but just because a company has access to first-party data doesn't mean that they're good at activating it. More traditional companies, like banking and telco, have access to lots of first-party data, but because of organizational setups, regulation, etc., they're not necessarily able to activate it on the way that they might like. On the flip side, the research found that some companies that do not have such access to first-party data were either able to build robust data partnerships or find opportunities for engagement with consumers, and in the process obtain access to first-party data. To bring this concept of finding new opportunities for engaging with customers to life, I want to share a case study that comes directly from the research. In the auto industry, manufacturers are often data poor as the customer relationship runs through the dealers and data sharing setups don't always exist. One company that was interviewed for this research had developed an app which provides a natural extension of their new electric car range through a number of helpful features, such as locking and unlocking car doors, preheating the car in the winter, planning journeys, alerting when the car needs servicing, and providing driving performance stats. With this information, the company can provide a more comprehensive customer experience, providing the customer with relevant offers around servicing, car parts, and even directing car owners to partnered charging station companies. Crucially, the company can also tell when new drivers use their car, potentially indicating life events such as a new driver, which may indicate that this family will be looking for another car in the near future. We saw at the top of this section that pretty much everyone who was surveyed agreed about the importance of first-party data in marketing, but very few companies were executing well. Looking at those respondents who are executing well, there are 6 organizational and technical enablers they display. On the organizational side, we see that a data-first mindset is key, data governance and stewardship is important and needs to be visible throughout the organization. For example, these top marketers hired new exec roles to lead on data strategy and responsibility, such as a chief data officer or DPOs, which are data protection officers. They understood the local regulations and they understood how to manage data. In one organization, they had nominated mini DPOs in each team that dealt with data. Specialist skills were brought in-house to make the most of the data that they did have, e.g. data scientists and cloud engineers. This enables them to do more sophisticated marketing. But also realizing where they had gaps, they worked with strategic and analytics partners to accelerate their maturity and make the most of the tech available. On the tech side, top marketers brought offline and online data sources together into a centralized cloud-based data warehouse, often referred to as a customer data platform. This allowed them to combine data seamlessly and gain insights about customers.
Well, thank you, Derek, for sharing all those super interesting insights. And for me, it's clear. We really should embrace our first-party data and take the most out of it. And to elaborate on this point, I really would love to share a case study with you, which we did with rituals. And after that, we will continue towards the best next steps. First of all, the case study. This case study is about Rituals. And Rituals is a home body and gifting brand. They're active in around 17 countries and they have more than 700 retail stores. 90% of their revenue is offline and 10% of their revenue is online. So that's exactly the challenge they've got. The customer journey is across offline and online within silos. And of course, like every organization, Rituals also has the ambition to bring this together, to have one combined customer journey. And that's what they did. They connected the data, created customer segments out of the data, and with the uses of these customer segments and customizing the message for those segments, they were able to increase their conversions by 85% whilst maintaining their CPA. So that's quite interesting. Now we will elaborate a little bit more on that, how they did this, because this is interesting. Rituals thought, okay, we have to connect all those different data silos, and we have to go to the owners of the data. So all the e-commerce department went to all the different departments within Rituals. For example, the IT department, supply chain, customer service, etc., etc. And whilst having those conversations with these different departments, they learned that also these departments have this kind of questions. And that's because they're all customer-centric. They all would love to have one big customer journey. And having this conversation brought up, of course, new use cases for them as well, because they also had some ideas of what they would love to do with this centrum where they bring all the data together. To give you a small example, customer service came up with an idea that they would love to exclude all their customers from marketing efforts whilst a customer has a complaint, which totally makes sense. And it is a use case for customer service, but it has to come from a centric point of view where all the data is together. So that's from an internal point of view. They also involve some external teams. For example, a cloud partner. This cloud partner was able to help them to build this big customer data platform where they bring all the data together. This because they needed this cloud partner because they are not technical enough to build this. And then, of course, they had a digital agency who was involved as well. And we, as Google, are also part of the whole big team. So what they did from a technical point of view is this. You see here the infrastructure mapping. Within every sprint, they added an extra data source towards the customer data platform. So they started with just customer information, but they also, for example, ingested the service data, which I already spoke about, the customer service data, to exclude these people when they have a complaint from marketing efforts. And with bringing this data together, creating those customer segments and then customizing, so personalizing their message towards these segments, they were able to increase the conversions by 85% whilst maintaining their CPA. So I think this is quite a case study that really points out that first-party data is super important. And then let's try to project this as well to your organization. So what they did was connecting the data, then analyzing the data, and then activating these data. That's exactly what they did. And I think it's possible for you as well. So we have the case study of rituals where they did it. And now I would like to give you some best next steps, how you can do this as well. First of all, dig a little bit deeper in what kind of data you've got. Make this connection with your departments. Think about all the customer data that is available, all the sales data that is available, and what kind of connectors do you need to stitch this data together? Because you need this connector, because otherwise it's not able to combine this data within one big scope. And then if you have an idea of all the data that you would like to connect, think about the quality. The quality is super important as well. And this quality is important. And I would love to explain this by giving you an example. A while ago, a customer called me and said, Hedwig, I've got a great idea. I really would love to activate my current clients and say that they should buy again. So reactivate them. And he said, I have about 1 million email addresses. I said, whoa, that's a lot. Like reactivating 1 million email addresses, this will be a big success and a huge, nice campaign. So we set it up. We uploaded all the email addresses via the privacy hashed safe way of Google, via customer match. And then we were able to target these people within the Google marketing platform. And then we found out that the match rate was only 15%, so 1.5. So of course the customer called me and said, what's going on? Why am I only able to activate 150,000 email addresses instead of the 1 million? My reach is really like declining. And I said, yeah, this is strange. And I asked him, did you already took a look at your email database? How does it look like? Are there a lot of misspellings? Maybe the data is super old, etc. And he took a look, and it was exactly what he found out. The data wasn't that good as he expected it to be. So the whole message is, the better the input, the better the output. And really, really take into account that the data of your quality has to be good. Think about the age, the source, the scale, the cost, accessibility, and if it really is related to your business objectives. So you connected all the data. You know what kind of data you need. You know the quality of your data, and also think about how to enrich your data, create more data. Derek already touched upon it super briefly, that you are able to gather as much data as possible. So for example, subscription, email addresses, and all that kind of stuff. Also make a strategy around that. It's super valuable. And that brings me to analyze. And this is the topic where I'm super excited about. Within analyze is where the magic happens. You brought all the data together, and then you finally have this data available around there, and then you're able to give answers to all your questions you have. So for example, how does a successful client look like? What is their entry product? How often do they buy? What is their age, their profile? All this kind of questions you could find answers on. But also, you're able to create predictable scripts on it. Machine learning, you could do whatever you want with this data, dashboarding, etc. To give a concrete example, you could also go for customer lifetime value. At the left-hand side of this slide, you see the data. In the middle, you see the model. In this perspective, frequency, monetary. And at the right-hand side, you see the outcome. It's about, within this case, 3 audiences, which are people with a low lifetime value, a medium lifetime value, and a high lifetime value. And then you would love to activate these audiences. And that's what possible to do within the customer data segment, which you see here within this activation slide. You see the blue plot at the right corner, you see CRM customer match. That's how you're able to activate this data. But then we're talking about audience segments. But it would also be valuable to activate sales data, which is in the yellow part. And there we're talking about adding in extra conversions for your Google Ads and all that kind of stuff. And at the right-hand side of the slide, you see the bidding. Wouldn't it be super cool to bid on smart ROAS? That's possible for you guys as well. And this is possible because you're able to add in and activate this data. So we talked about connecting the data, analyzing, and activating this data, and how to do this. That brings me to the end of this presentation. Well, not the end, the conclusion of this presentation. First of all, think about the story that Derek shared with us. Embrace your first-party data. Make the most out of it, because it is super valuable and will generate an incremental revenue for you. Then second, think about all the data that you're able to connect, how you're able to analyze it, and how you're able to activate your data. And then third, be aware that your first-party data is not always available for every customer you are in contact with. Be aware of this, that there is a gap, and elaborate extra strategies for this gap and make use also there of your first-party data. And that brings us to the questions. Derek, are there any questions?
Thank you, Edward. Yes, there are a couple of questions. Moving on to question 1. So this says, first-party data is excellent for communication with existing customers or users who have engaged previously with your brand. What about new customer acquisition? My answer to this would be knowing more about your existing customers, i.e. who they are, what they like, why they engage with your brand or service in the first place, allows you to be smarter and more targeted about how you go finding other people like them. It can help you with profiling, positioning, creative messaging, and so on. Separately, on a more tactical level, you can take a seed first-party data audience and use audience expansion within Google Audiences to find new users to target who look like your existing ones. Over to you, Hedwig, as I think there are more questions.
Thank you, Derek. Yes, there's also another question. How is third-party cookie blocking in browsers going to impact on digital marketing practices? Yes, it is going to impact your digital marketing because the third-party cookies are blocked already by default by Safari and by Firefox. So that means that this data is missing. So if you're relying on these third-party cookies with respect to your measurement, with respect to your bidding and how to set up your audiences, it will definitely have an impact for you. And then see if we've got another question. So there we go, Derek. The third and the last question.
Okay, so this question says, what is a simple first step without much effort to get started with a first-party data? What is a simple first step without much effort to get started with first-party data to help build an internal case study? So my advice here would be to start with a product like Customer Match, where you can upload customer IDs to Google in a hashed, privacy-safe way. By customer IDs, I mean things like email addresses, phone numbers, mailing addresses, user IDs, or mobile device IDs. And then you can reach those users across 5 Google offerings. So search, shopping, display, YouTube, and Gmail. And there's a number of strategies that you can adopt. So you can re-engage them with creatives, you can exclude them from campaigns, or you can use them to find new users via audience expansion. Next step would probably be to talk to your data intelligence team, find the customer lists that best fit your desired strategy, and go from there. This process should kickstart many of the conversations that will push your first-party data activation strategy forward. And that is all in terms of questions, and that is all from us as well. So thank you very much, and best of luck with your marketing.
Thank you.